You're watching KRQE News 13.
Today is International Day for Monuments and Sites, and no state in America draws its history from all over the globe more than New Mexico. We are celebrating today by taking a look at the value of the historic sites and how to talk about them and even visit them. We are joined by our good friend, historian Raffi Andonian, telling us more about this wonderful day that now we know about it. Raffi, good to have you with us.
Great day to be here, especially as a historian.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So we know that we have, I want to say tons of them, but a number of them throughout the state. I mean, you can't go to any corner without being like, oh, here's a marker that explains what's going on here, what happened here dozens of years ago. Who created International Day for Monuments and Sites? ICOMOS
is the acronym, which is International Council of Monuments and Sites.
Oh, well, appropriate.
Exactly, and they create a day in their name, right? But the council exists within UNESCO, as it's known, which is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, Cultural Organization. Okay. So it stems out of the UN, so it's a global organization, not governmental, but globally recognizing. And I think it's really fitting here in New Mexico. As you mentioned, so many places New Mexico draws its history from. A couple of examples, and actually relates to UNESCO, which created also something called World Heritage Sites, which is relevant today. World Heritage Sites are sites that are globally significant, and we have a few of them here in New Mexico. One example is Chaco Culture National Historical Park, which is very significant in global archaeology and studying it. Another example is Taos Pueblo up in northern New Mexico.
Absolutely.
And I used to live near there, and that's how I discovered it. So I think that that really connects to the body we're talking about that recognizes global heritage, and New Mexico certainly contributes.
Yeah, and again, you know, this is something that we can all take part in. Like you said, even just taking a spin around New Mexico, like going up Tramway, you can find a marker there. You can go out of the city, and then you'll inevitably come across something.
That's right.
Why is it important to preserve these historic sites?
Because these sites tell the story of not only locally here in New Mexico, right? So, for example, Chaco or Taos, but they tell the story of the world, and it's captured here in New Mexico. Now, I'll give you an example of the power of a sense of place. Now, there you're looking at photos of me doing historic site tours in the past. That's one of me at Gettysburg.
That a young Raffi right there?
Sites. That's right, a young Raffi. And, you know, that's sort of my background that I bring into when I see the significance. And one of those times, amongst those photos somewhere, I was working at the Martin Luther King home, so I worked at different sites. And when I was at the MLK home, I met a group of kids between age 9 and 13 that had scarring on them. And what I discovered as I was walking into MLK home, leading them in from their chaperone, was that they were escaped slaves from Haiti in the illegal human trafficking trade. And they chose, when they came to the U.S., to come to the Martin Luther King home to engage with the history and the legacy. And that, to me, told me the power of a sense of place. And you were talking earlier about virtual reality versus a physical reality. Well, a historic site is a wonderful way to engage with that physical reality and make that history come alive, because look at the power it had on them. And certainly we have that here in New Mexico as well, that global draw. For example, Los Alamos in New Mexico, excuse me, up in northern New Mexico, where you have of course, the creation of the atomic bomb that had a global influence, much like Martin Luther King's legacy did on those kids.
Yeah, and there's no better way to do it than, I mean, yeah, it's great to read about it. It's great to look at it virtually on a computer, but there's nothing like seeing it in person. You're actually there at the site where something happened. There's something that says a lot about that, right?
You're feeling that. You get a sense of place, and you get a sense of feeling, and you certainly makes it come more alive, and you learn more.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think it is about New Mexico that makes this so abundant for these kind of sites?
Because New Mexico has such a global influence from different cultures, coming from around Europe and the Mediterranean, all the way even from Egypt and North Africa, France, Spain, Italy, and of course the many indigenous cultures that are here in New Mexico, well over 24. If you look across centuries, well over that as well. And those indigenous cultures are some of the oldest in North America. So it goes back thousands of years here, and you can visit anywhere and see archaeology, not only at places like Bandelier National Monument, or you can of course go to Chaco, which we talked about, but you can also go to petroglyphs right here, Petroglyph National Monument right here in Albuquerque. And so when you look at that, that really captures all the different cultural influences that you're having here in New Mexico, and that's what makes it so special.
There you go, and when you talk about remembering the atomic bomb, right there, written by Raffi himself, a book that you have compiled and put together, you know, talking about, you know, I guess, again, a place that is prominently putting New Mexico on the global map.
That's right, and providing a series of questions with the atomic bomb as a case study and how to approach learning about historic sites, a blueprint.
There you go. Raffi, where can we find more information?
Where I would start is the New Mexico Historic Sites, which is the state sites. There's so many different entities in New Mexico that do this, but the place to start, I think, is through the state. I would go to nmhistoricscites.org. That's where I would start. You have 8 historic sites there, including a couple in the Albuquerque area, but scattered throughout the entire state, so you can have a starting point for learning about New Mexico history, and then from there, go on to the various national parks around.
There you go. There's a weekend trip for you to explore and learn about New Mexico. Raffi Andonian, always, buddy. Thank you for joining us. Yep.